According to the Buddhist faith, there are four noble truths which comprise the essence of Buddhist teachings: the truth of suffering, the truth of the cause of suffering, the truth of the end of suffering, and the truth of the path that leads to the end of suffering. In life, frequent or infrequently, we will stray from divinity. Yet no matter how far we stray from divinity, no matter how far we stray from the principles and or presence of God, Buddha, Muhammad, Allah, Jehovah, whomever, there will always be a place, there will always be people that will aid in your realignment, as you too will encounter people and or places of deceitful recourse. And in some cases, there too may come a time where your designated assistants will not fulfill their ordained position. Your mother may act as a daughter. Your grandmother may act as your mother. Your brother may act as your father, and your father may act as a complete stranger. No matter who is there to assist you or distract you, you are the common denominator. The most assured assistance is of your own.
The best thing that we can hope for, the most important thing we can hope for, or pray for, or ask for, is that our desires coincide with God's will. Because at the end of the day, at the beginning of the day, it's going to be God's will. It's always going to be God's will.
At times, there appears to be this huge misnomer of fate. Because it is suggested to be predetermined, it is often implied that from conception, one's fate is absolute. Yet within fate, there's choice. So our fate is merely predetermined by our judgment than our existence alone. So yes, as God is all-knowing, our fate is very well predetermined, yet our judgment is what constructs that fate, from beginning to end. God knows, yet we choose, because He's a God of choice. To paraphrase the episode of Iyana Fix My Life at which DMX appeared, to be a clear voice and or vessel of God, you must do away with all that taints His word, for His breath, which carries the word and or consciousness, exists within you. When referencing the Christian faith, we are of God's image and according to His likeness. God took of Himself to create creation. We as humans are of that creation. When we speak or act, we are merely representatives of God. This divinity or sanctuary we seek is contained within flesh. And not to be corny, but referencing Mary J. Blige's 2001 hit, No More Drama, it's up to us to choose whether we win or lose. So in short, upon the offer to advance or regress, you choose your choice. You make your fate. No matter who afflicted you initially, when you continually allow the person who hurt you to hurt you, although they are no longer of access to have the means to hurt you in the way that they initially hurt you or could continually hurt you, the conversation is then no longer of transgressional trauma, yet moreover, it becomes a conversation of self-affliction. Nobody can save you but you. Nobody can hurt you more than you. Nobody can want better for you than you. Since Earl Simmons passed away April 9th, 2021, many illustrate a life voided of opportunity, specifically voided of love, emphasizing his deprived maternal nurturement. And with this maternal reference, I want to place emphasis that there were women within moments of his life that attempted to love Earl Simmons in the places where love was voided. His paternal grandmother, Mariella Holloway, his ex-wife, Tashira Simmons, and his fiancée, Desiree Lindstorm. Just as people encouraged his vices, deepening his sins, he too had a balance to counteract the bad for the good. Yet it seemed as if he wanted someone to love him for him. more than he was willing to love himself. He wanted someone to love him, not for the sheer substance of himself, yet rather to love him, for there was an unknowingness of how, or an unyieldingness to do so. No one can love you enough to make you love yourself. And I think that's what a lot of these women understood. You gotta love yourself, which probably explains his fidelity. It seemed he sought different women within moments of his life, almost the same as JHENE AIKO sought her brother in different men, because you're seeking to mend something between a specific person with other people. That is why forgiveness is truly for the person whom sustained injury than it is for the person whom afflicted an initial or continual harm. As the afflicted, you have to not only forgive your afflictor through understanding, yet you must too forgive yourself for being afflicted. Because if not reconciled, it may transmute into self-afflictions that further afflict others. And to the general public, understand that I've stated the previous and the preceding, not to disregard the intersectionality of Earl Simmons' tragedies and or triumphs, yet moreover, referencing back to the Buddhist faith and the Four Noble Truths, suffering exists. It has a cause, it has an end, and it has a cause to bring about its end. The notion of suffering is not intended to convey a negative worldview, but rather a pragmatic perspective that deals with the world as it is and attempts to rectify it. The concept of pleasure is not denied but acknowledged as fleeting. The pursuit of pleasure can only continue what is ultimately an unquenchable thirst. The same knowledge belies an understanding of happiness. In the end, only aging, sickness, and death are certain and unavoidable. Conclusively, from where I stand, life is parallel to money. There is no clear value or value at all until we instill a meaning. Referring to the Christian faith or any faith that bases their practice on this belief, God can't work till you work. To witness a movement, you must provide momentum. So when detailing Earl Simmons' adolescence, pubescent youth, and adulthood, know that only Earl could curtail his life. Although the beginning may have been difficult, you are not your origins. You are merely your navigation. So reference Earl's trauma, yet do not remember Earl as and or for his trauma, because his life, his existence, was more than that. It was more than trauma.
If I was to drop it right now, my last thought would be, I've had a good life.
Remember his successes. Remember his triumph through adversity. Remember Earl as a whole, not for the fragments of his life. We will reference his mother, Arnett Simmons, his father, Joe Baker, his Judas, Reddy Ron, his ex-wife, Tashara Simmons, his fiancée, Desiree Lindstorm, his children, and many others, as they are a part of his story. Yet Earl was the narrator, the illustrator, the publisher. Earl had the last and final say.